Welcome back to Godfall 101. Now, it's been a while since my last video, but I really didn't want to force myself to make content if there wasn't much to talk about. It's very possible that sometime soon we'll be hearing more about Godfall, which gets me really excited. But before that, I want to talk about the lore snippets that Counterplay Games has been dropping on Twitter. So let's dive in, talk about what we learned, and some minor speculation. The history of Hyperion. Cosmira made the world when she devoured herself. The Archons were her dreams, and they dreamt hungrily of existence. There was nothing to satisfy the hunger but her own flesh. From the ruins of Cosmira's body, the Archons stepped forth into existence. So who is Cosmira? My wild speculation is that Cosmira was a celestial being that, while existing in space at some point and for some reason, maybe while in a dream state, the ideals, characteristics, personality of Cosmira became sentient and they splintered off from her. And they found a way to kill Cosmira the host. And from there, the Archons emerged. From Fall of the Archons, Book 1. We Valorians were the first design. All 12 Archons collaborated to craft us forms they would eventually use. We had always believed they made us in their image, but they would ultimately make themselves too well in ours. So from this lore snippet, we learned that there were 12 Archons that formed after the fall of Cosmira. Archon in Greek means to be first or to rule, which in this case makes sense that there were 12 and they were called Archons because they were very possibly the first rulers of Hyperion. We don't exactly know what forms the Archons took in the beginning of their existence. We do know that it was not physical, so there was some metaphysical manifestation of their power, but it wasn't physical yet. And if the Valorians were the first design, what came after them? Fall of the Archons, Book 2. The peoples of Hyperion had misunderstood the Archons' nature. They should have stayed as gods of ideal. When they spun themselves physical shapes, incarnating themselves into the physical realm, they became trapped by the sins of mortality. So the Archons create physical forms for themselves, probably based on whatever aspect of Cosmira that they took from her. In this book, it talks about being trapped by the sins of mortality. I don't know if there's some downside of actually having a physical body on Hyperion, but for some reason it started to change the Archons. Fall of the Archons, Book 4. With Valorians as their great armies, each Archon, according to their nature and their hunger, be it conquest or be it mercy for the conquered, made war. We did not know how deeply Cosmira's hunger had chewed into their souls then. We would learn. So like any group of siblings, after spending an extended amount of time around each other, you just kind of end up wanting to kill each other. My guess is that each aspect of the Archons, here Conquest and Mercy, would have been at odds with each other, and the only way to resolve that was through war and consuming the other one. The Upheaval, Book 6. Overcome by mortal anger, jealousy, and ambition, the Archons quarreled amongst themselves. It is said that when kings quarrel, they argue using armies. We Valorians were made by the Archons to be their armies. And so, with little choice, we argued. It's interesting here that we learn that the Valorians were made for battle, to fight for their Archons. And that's what they were made to do, almost like they didn't have much of a choice other than that, except to fight. The more I think about the Archons and why exactly they would just automatically start waging war is my guess that it probably didn't happen at the very beginning. The Archons were probably living together, trying to figure existence out, and something happened when they spun themselves up physically that they began to change. That they probably didn't make the Valorians in the first place for war or for battle. But they ended up being used that way because the Archons needed to consume each other. They wanted to be whole. They wanted to go back to their original form in Cosmira. And in order to do that, they kind of had to consume the other Archons. The Upheaval, Book 8. The Archons' unwavering belief in their own perfection would doom us if we continued to follow them. They had to be stopped. We could not allow them to corrode our attempts to build a true civilization. I think this book kind of gives a little bit of evidence to the fact that the Valorians weren't made for battle in the beginning because they wanted to build a true civilization. and the Archons fighting each other was going to prevent that. So they must have started building that before. And it seems to me that the very life the Archons created, they were going to destroy, which is kind of ironic. And you know, the Valorians appeared to have their own wills and desires. They didn't want to die. They didn't want to destroy each other. They really just wanted to create, and they wanted to build. The Upheaval, Book 12, Part 1. It did not escape us that the Archons never worked together. It would be difficult for one of us to take on an Archon and win. But unlike them, we are not alone. Even if they would not work together, we Valorians would. Maybe it's the hubris of an Archon who essentially was a god, or born from a god, to not be afraid of its own creations. But what parent really expects their children to turn on them and dethrone them? The Upheaval, Book 12, Part 2. The price in blood was high, but we had done it. All 12 of the Archons were sent screaming back to the realm of dreams and spirit. Now the real work could be done. We could build a true society. Successful in driving back the Archons to the realm of dreams, where, ironically, the Archons were born while Cosmere slept, is kind of funny. The Valorians were successful. They could build now. But as I, and as well as you can probably imagine, the story doesn't end here, and things probably go badly. So I really like creation myths. I think they're fun to interpret and speculate about, from Genesis in the Bible, the world of darkness from the Navajo stories, Nyx and Greek mythology. They all kind of have similar undertones. But I am excited to learn more about the history and the lore of Hyperion. Oftentimes, people interpret things differently. The books that we have thus far appear to be written from the perspective of a Valorian. But from which Archon is that Valorian? Would all Valorians see things the same way? Are there 12 tribes of Valorians? After banishing the Archons back to the dreams, did they stay together? Did they divide and create their own cultures? There's still a lot of questions, and soon I think we'll be getting at least a peek into what Godfall has in store for us. But until then, this has been Steve with Godfall 101. Please, if you like the content, subscribe. And until next time, everyone, please stay on your feet. Please stay safe.